Have you ever left your doctor's office with a prescription for a statin, a head full of numbers like LDL and HDL, and a feeling of confusion? Maybe even a little bit of dread? If so, you are far from alone. Over 200 million people worldwide are on statins, and here in the United States, we spend around $10 billion a year on these drugs. Yet despite this massive effort, heart disease remains the #1 killer. Doesn't it make you wonder if we're missing a piece of the puzzle? For the last 60 years, we've been told a very simple story about cholesterol. Eat less fat, lower your cholesterol, and protect your heart. But what if that story is wrong? Or at the very least, woefully outdated? If you've been led to believe that your cholesterol number is a ticking time bomb and a statin is the only thing that can defuse it, I'm here today to tell you that the science has moved on. The conversation has changed. In the next 25 minutes, we are going to pull back the curtain on what I call the cholesterol lie. We'll count down the 10 biggest myths that are still shaping your doctor's advice, and more importantly, we'll give you a new, more powerful way to think about your heart health, one that puts you back in the driver's seat. The core problem we're tackling today is that the advice many of us still receive is based on science from the 1950s and 60s. Our goal today isn't to tell you to throw your medication in the trash. Absolutely not. Our goal is to arm you with the latest scientific understanding so you can have a more informed, more confident conversation with your doctor about what's truly best for your health. We're not just pulling this out of thin air. We'll be looking at the history of these guidelines, drawing on research published in major medical journals like the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, and referencing information from trusted institutions like Johns Hopkins Medicine and the Mayo Clinic, who themselves have had to evolve their recommendations over the decades as the science has become clearer. To make this journey easy to follow, we're going to count down the top 10 most persistent and misleading beliefs about cholesterol, from number 10 all the way to the biggest myth of them all at number 1. For each belief, we'll explore where it came from, why it's wrong, and the simple, empowering truth you can use instead. And you'll definitely want to stick around for number 5 and number 4, where we'll reveal why the main cholesterol number your doctor probably talks about might be one of the least important, and what you should be looking at instead. It's a real game changer. And of course, a quick but very important reminder. I am not a doctor, and this video is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice from your own physician, who knows your personal health history. Our goal is to empower your conversations, not replace them. All right, are you ready? Let's begin the countdown. All right, let's kick things off with a classic, coming in at number 10. Eating cholesterol will give you high cholesterol. For decades, we were told to fear the egg yolk, to skip the shrimp, to treat any food with cholesterol like a villain about to do us harm. This belief started with what seemed like simple logic. In the early 20th century, scientists fed massive, unnatural doses of pure cholesterol to rabbits, who are herbivores and aren't designed to process dietary cholesterol at all, and saw that it caused atherosclerosis, or plaque in their arteries. This, along with a few other early observations, led to the very first dietary guidelines in the 1960s and 70s, which officially recommended capping cholesterol intake at 300 milligrams per day. That's about 1.5 egg yolks. But here's the truth. The science has now made clear. For the vast majority of people, the human body has a brilliant and sophisticated self-regulation system for cholesterol. Think of it like a thermostat. When you eat more cholesterol from food, your liver simply produces less of its own. Your intestines also become less efficient at absorbing it, keeping your blood levels in a stable range. Your body is smart. I remember my own mother, bless her heart, meticulously making egg white omelets for years. She was so proud of being healthy, but she missed out on all the incredible nutrients in the yolk, the choline for brain health, the vitamins, the healthy fats. She was following the best advice she had, but that advice was built on a shaky foundation of rabbit studies. So your action step here is simple. Stop fearing nutrient-dense whole foods. You can enjoy your eggs for breakfast. As we'll see throughout our countdown, the key isn't avoiding individual components like cholesterol. Now, it is important to mention that a very small percentage of the population are what's known as hyper-responders to dietary cholesterol. And if you have a genetic condition like familial hypercholesterolemia, this is a different conversation entirely. That is a sign to work very closely with your healthcare provider. So, if the cholesterol we eat isn't the bad guy we thought it was, what about that other villain we've heard about for 60 years? That brings us directly to belief number 9. Coming in at number 9 is the big one, the belief that has shaped our grocery stores and dinner plates for half a century. Saturated fat from foods like butter, red meat, and full-fat cheese is public enemy number 1 for your heart. This is the absolute core of the diet heart hypothesis, an idea championed by a physiologist named Ansel Keys back in the 1950s. The idea was simple and seductive. Eating saturated fat raises your blood cholesterol, and that cholesterol clogs your arteries. It made perfect sense on the surface. This idea got a massive boost in 1961 when the American Heart Association officially recommended that Americans reduce saturated fat and replace it with polyunsaturated fats from vegetable oils. It's a noteworthy historical fact that just over a decade earlier, the AHA had received a transformative $1.7 million donation. That's about $20 million in today's money. From Procter & Gamble, the makers of Crisco, a hydrogenated vegetable oil rich in polyunsaturated fats. But the truth, confirmed by a mountain of modern evidence, is that this is a dangerous oversimplification. Multiple large-scale reviews of studies involving hundreds of thousands of people have now concluded that there are no beneficial effects from reducing saturated fat on your risk of cardiovascular disease or dying from any cause. So what went wrong? The old advice failed to consider two crucial things. First is the food matrix. Saturated fat in a piece of unprocessed cheese or a glass of whole milk behaves very differently in your body than a spoonful of pure, isolated saturated fat. The other nutrients in the whole food, the proteins, the calcium, the vitamins, they all work together to change how that fat is metabolized. Second, and more importantly, when we were told to cut saturated fat, we replaced it with something else. Think about the 1980s and 90s. The low-fat craze was everywhere. We had low-fat cookies, low-fat salad dressings, low-fat everything. And what did food companies replace the fat with to make things taste good? Sugar and refined carbohydrates. We dutifully traded butter for margarines that were often full of unhealthy, man-made trans fats. And we loaded up on sugar-laden processed foods, believing we were making the healthy choice. In the process, our rates of obesity and diabetes skyrocketed. Your action step here is to stop looking at single nutrients on a label and start looking at whole foods. Is the saturated fat coming from a highly processed frozen pizza loaded with chemicals and refined flour? Or is it coming from a serving of high-quality, full-fat Greek yogurt? The source matters more than the number. Focus on eating real, unprocessed foods. Of course, this isn't a license to eat unlimited amounts of bacon and fast food burgers. Quality is paramount. A diet high in processed foods, whether it's high in fat or not, is unhealthy. That's a conversation worth having with your doctor or a registered dietitian. The foundation for this decades-long fear of saturated fat was built on a single famous study. But just how solid was that foundation? Let's dig into that at number 8. At number 8, we have the study that started it all. The belief that Ansel Keys' 7-country study proved beyond a doubt that countries eating more saturated fat had more heart disease. But as the years went by and other scientists began to look closer, the study's reputation began to crumble. It was deeply flawed. First, there was the charge of cherry-picking. Keys was accused of selecting only the 7 countries that would fit his preconceived hypothesis. He famously excluded countries like France and Switzerland, where people ate a great deal of saturated fat but had very low rates of heart disease. While his defenders have argued the nuances of this for years, the fact remains that the selection of countries was not random, which is a major form of scientific bias. Second, the data collection itself was questionable. Dietary information was gathered from a tiny fraction of the men, less than 4% of the total participants, and in some places, like the Greek island of Crete, the dietary survey was conducted during Lent, a period of religious fasting when the Greek Orthodox Church forbids eating all animal products. This almost certainly led to a dramatic underreporting of their true year-round intake of meat, cheese, and butter. But the biggest flaw of all is one of basic logic. Correlation is not causation. It's like looking at a chart that shows ice cream sales and shark attacks both go up in the summer. You could conclude that eating ice cream causes shark attacks. But the real cause, the confounding variable, is the summer heat driving both behaviors. The 7-country study made a similar leap of faith. In fact, a later reanalysis of the very same data found that the consumption of sweets, sugar, and pastries was an even stronger predictor of heart disease than saturated fat was. The action step here is a mental one. Be skeptical of headlines that scream, "This one thing causes that." Health is complex. Always ask yourself, what else could be going on? This mindset empowers you to look for the whole picture, not just a convenient scapegoat. Understanding this history isn't about arguing with your doctor, but about recognizing the historical context of the advice you're receiving. The study pointed to many factors, but one we often overlook is the one going on inside our own heads. Let's talk about that with belief number 7. Moving on to number 7, a belief that dangerously separates the mind from the body. Stress is just a feeling. It can't possibly affect something physical like my cholesterol levels. For a long time, medicine often treated the body like a machine, with separate, disconnected parts. Stress was seen as a purely psychological issue, while cholesterol was a biochemical one. We now know this is completely, fundamentally wrong. Chronic, long-term stress is a powerful chemical driver of poor heart health. When you're constantly stressed, whether it's from finances, family issues, or just the 24-hour news cycle, your body pumps out the hormone cortisol. This isn't just a feeling. Think about a stressful period in your life, maybe a job loss, or caring for a sick loved one. What happened to your habits? Did you sleep less? Did you reach for cookies or a pint of ice cream more often? Did you skip your daily walk? That's not a failure of willpower. So your action step is to take stress management as seriously as you take your diet or your medication. This isn't soft advice. Now, if you feel your stress is unmanageable, or if you're experiencing persistent symptoms of anxiety or depression, please talk to your healthcare provider. These are treatable medical conditions that have a profound impact on your physical health, and you don't have to go through it alone. Stress can deplete our bodies in more ways than one, which leads us directly to our next belief, number 6, about what might be missing from your system. At number 6, we have the idea that as long as you're eating the right foods, you're covered. This is the belief that specific nutrient deficiencies don't play a major role in your cholesterol or heart health. For decades, mainstream advice has focused almost exclusively on what to remove from the diet: fat, cholesterol, salt. But it's often ignored the critical importance of what we need to ensure is in our diet. The truth is, several key nutrients are absolutely critical for heart health, and many Americans, especially seniors, are deficient in them. Let's talk about 3 big ones. First, magnesium. Think of it as the body's relaxation mineral. It helps regulate your heart's rhythm. It helps relax blood vessels to maintain healthy blood pressure, and it's involved in hundreds of critical chemical reactions in the body. You can find it in dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and seafood. Second is vitamin K2. Now, this is not the same as vitamin K1, which is for blood clotting. Vitamin K2 has a completely different job. It acts like a traffic cop for calcium in your body. Its job is to direct calcium into your bones and teeth where it belongs, and crucially, to keep it out of your arteries and soft tissues, where it can cause dangerous calcification and hardening. Vitamin K2 is found in fermented foods like natto and sauerkraut, as well as in egg yolks and certain aged cheeses. Third is coenzyme Q10, or CoQ10. This is a powerful antioxidant that is absolutely essential for producing energy inside every single cell of your body, but especially in your heart, which is the most energy-demanding muscle we have. Now, here is a crucial connection that is almost never discussed in a doctor's office. Statin drugs, the #1 treatment for high cholesterol, are known to deplete the body's levels of both CoQ10 and vitamin K2. They work by blocking a specific pathway in the liver, but that same pathway is also used to produce these vital nutrients. This means the very medication prescribed to protect the heart could be depleting nutrients that are essential for heart muscle energy and for keeping arteries flexible and clear. This depletion is thought to be a major reason why some people experience muscle pain and weakness on statins. It's a sign of CoQ10 deficiency. I had a friend whose father, a man in his 70s, was put on a high-dose statin. He started complaining of terrible muscle weakness and fatigue, which was just dismissed as getting older. No one ever mentioned that the statin itself could be draining his body of CoQ10, the very spark plug his muscles need for energy. It wasn't until he started supplementing with CoQ10, after doing his own research and talking with his pharmacist, that he started to feel like himself again. Your action step here is twofold. First, focus on eating nutrient-dense whole foods that are rich in these compounds. Second, if you are on a statin, have a specific, informed conversation with your doctor or a knowledgeable pharmacist. Ask them directly, could my medication be depleting key nutrients like CoQ10 and vitamin K2? And should I consider supplementation? Of course, never start or stop any supplement without talking to your doctor, as they can interact with medications. This is about asking informed questions, not self-prescribing. Speaking of what your doctor measures, let's take a breath and get ready for the top 5, because this is where the lies get even more fundamental. Okay, let's pause for a moment. We're halfway through, and we've already busted some huge myths. We've learned that eating cholesterol doesn't necessarily raise your blood cholesterol, that not all saturated fat is evil, that the famous study that started it all was deeply flawed, that chronic stress is a chemical reality for your heart, and that key nutrient deficiencies can be a hidden danger, sometimes caused by the very medications we take. The common thread here is that the old simple rules are falling apart under the weight of new science. And by the way, if you're having some aha moments, do me a favor and tap that like button below. It's a simple click for you, but it tells YouTube that this is valuable information and helps other people who are just as confused and frustrated to find this video. Thank you for that. Now, are you ready for the top 5? This is where we get into the numbers on your lab report and the very definition of what causes heart disease itself. Let's dive in. All right, the big one. Number 5 on our list is the belief that your LDL-C, that bad cholesterol number, is the be-all and end-all. If it's high, you're in trouble. If it's low, you're safe. For decades, LDL-C, which stands for low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, has been the primary target of therapy. It's a measure of the amount or concentration of cholesterol being carried inside your LDL particles. It was relatively easy to measure, and it seemed to correlate with heart disease risk, so it became the gold standard. But the truth is, this is like judging the severity of a traffic jam by measuring the total weight of all the cars on the road. It doesn't tell you the most important thing. How many cars are there? A far more accurate predictor of risk is now understood to be LDL-P, which stands for low-density lipoprotein particle number. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine your LDL particles are little delivery trucks carrying cholesterol cargo through your bloodstream. The standard LDL-C test measures the total weight of the cargo in all the trucks. The advanced LDL-P test measures the total number of trucks. You can have a normal amount of cargo, a normal LDL-C, but have it spread out among the massive number of tiny little trucks, a high LDL-P. It's the sheer number of trucks that creates the traffic jam in your arteries and increases the chances of a crash that leads to plaque. To make matters worse, these LDL trucks come in different models. Some are large, fluffy, beach ball-like particles that tend to bounce off the artery walls. Others are small, dense, BB gun pellet-like particles. These small, dense ones are far more dangerous because they are small enough to easily penetrate the artery wall, get stuck, become oxidized, think of it like rusting, and kick off the plaque-forming process. A very strong clue that you have this dangerous small particle pattern is having high triglycerides and low HDL cholesterol. Let's imagine two people, John and Dave. They both go to the doctor and get the exact same normal LDL-C reading of 120. John's doctor pats him on the back and says, "You're fine." But Dave's doctor is more thorough and runs an advanced test. It turns out Dave's cholesterol is being carried in a massive swarm of those small, dense, dangerous particles. He has a very high LDL-P number. John, on the other hand, has his cholesterol carried in a few big, fluffy, less harmful particles. Who is at higher risk? Dave is, by a long shot, but the standard cholesterol test would have missed it completely. Your action step here is to ask your doctor for a more advanced look at your lipids. Ask specifically, can we measure my LDL particle number, my LDL-P, or my ApoB level? Apolipoprotein B, or ApoB, is a protein found on the surface of every single LDL particle, so measuring ApoB is an excellent and often cheaper way to determine your particle number. This gives you a much clearer picture of your actual risk. And here's a red flag. If you already have risk factors like diabetes, metabolic syndrome, or high triglycerides, you are much more likely to have this dangerous pattern of high particle numbers, even with a normal LDL-C reading. For you, asking for an advanced lipid panel isn't just a good idea. So if the bad cholesterol number isn't the whole story, what about the total cholesterol number we hear so much about? That brings us to belief number 4. Coming in at number 4 is the granddaddy of them all, the number that has caused anxiety for millions. The belief that your total cholesterol must be under 200. This has been the simple, unwavering rule for generations. Total cholesterol was one of the first and easiest things to measure on a blood test. It's a simple calculation. Your HDL number plus your LDL number plus 20% of your triglycerides. The under 200 rule was an easy-to-remember public health message that stuck. The truth? Your total cholesterol number is almost useless on its own because it lumps good and bad things together. You could have a high total cholesterol of 230 simply because your good, protective HDL cholesterol is incredibly high, which is actually a great thing. On the flip side, you could have a desirable total cholesterol of 190, but have dangerously high triglycerides and very low protective HDL, putting you at significant risk. The total number hides the important details. A far more powerful predictor of your heart disease risk is the triglyceride to HDL ratio. This is a simple calculation you can do yourself. Just take your triglyceride number and divide it by your HDL number. This ratio is one of the most powerful indicators of insulin resistance, which we'll talk about more in a minute, and the presence of those dangerous, small, dense LDL particles we just discussed. Here's what the numbers mean. A ratio of 2 to 1 or less is considered ideal. A ratio of 3 to 1 indicates a slight risk. A ratio over 4 to 1 is considered high risk and a major red flag. Let's go back to our friends John and Dave. John has a high total cholesterol of 240, and his doctor is worried. But when we look closer, his triglycerides are 80 and his HDL is 80. His triglyceride to HDL ratio is a perfect 1 to 1. He's in great metabolic shape. Now look at Dave. He has a perfect total cholesterol of 190, but his triglycerides are 200 and his HDL is only 40. His ratio is a dangerous 5 to 1. The total cholesterol number told the exact opposite of the true story of their risk. Your action step is to grab your last lab report and do the math yourself. Divide your triglyceride number by your HDL number. This single ratio gives you more insight into your metabolic health than your total cholesterol ever will. Bring this number to your next doctor's appointment and ask about it specifically. If your ratio is 3.5 or higher, that's a significant red flag for something called insulin resistance, and it's a sign that you need to seriously address your diet and lifestyle, particularly your intake of sugar and refined carbs. This ratio points to a much deeper problem. We've been so focused on cholesterol as the cause of plaque, but what if it's just a bystander at the scene of the crime? Let's investigate that with belief number 3. At number 3, we get to the very heart of the matter, the belief that cholesterol is the villain that causes plaque to build up in your arteries, leading to heart attacks. When scientists first examined arterial plaques under a microscope, they found cholesterol in them. It was a logical but ultimately simplistic conclusion to blame the cholesterol itself. This is like finding firefighters at every single fire and concluding that firefighters must be the ones causing the fires. The real root cause of most atherosclerosis, the hardening and narrowing of the arteries, is inflammation and damage to the artery wall. Think of the delicate inner lining of your arteries, called the endothelium, as a smooth, non-stick, Teflon-coated pipe. Chronic inflammation, which is caused by things like high blood sugar, smoking, chronic stress, and a diet of processed foods, is like taking sandpaper to that Teflon lining every single day. It scratches it up, damages it, and makes it sticky. Cholesterol, particularly those small, dense LDL particles, is simply trying to do its job. deliver lipids and energy for cellular repair. But when it arrives at a site that is already damaged, inflamed, and sticky, it gets trapped. Once trapped, it can become oxidized. You can think of this as a kind of biological rust, and that triggers an even bigger inflammatory response from your immune system. The plaque that forms is not caused by cholesterol. It's like a pothole on a busy road. What causes the pothole? Is it the asphalt patch they used to fill it? Of course not. The cause was the damage, the freezing and thawing, the heavy trucks, the constant wear and tear. The asphalt patch, which is like cholesterol, is just the repair material that gets lumped into the damaged area. To prevent potholes, you don't ban asphalt. Your action step is to shift your primary focus from lowering cholesterol to reducing inflammation. How do you do that? You eat a strongly anti-inflammatory diet rich in colorful fruits and vegetables, healthy fats from olive oil and fatty fish, and whole grains. You avoid pro-inflammatory foods like sugar, refined carbohydrates, and industrial sea oils. And you manage your stress and get regular, gentle exercise. As a red flag, if you have ongoing symptoms like body aches, chronic fatigue, joint pain, or persistent digestive issues, these can be signs of chronic inflammation elsewhere in your body. Talk to your doctor about these symptoms and ask if a blood test for inflammatory markers, like high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, or HSCRP, might be appropriate for you. We've mentioned that the old advice to cut fat led to a spike in something else. That something is the true dietary villain. Let's unmask it at number 2. We're at number 2, and it's a belief that flows directly from everything we've been told for 60 years. The fat on your plate is the biggest dietary problem for your cholesterol. This was the logical conclusion of the old diet heart hypothesis. If fat causes high cholesterol, then cutting fat must be the answer. This thinking led directly to the disastrous low-fat dietary guidelines of the 1980s and beyond. But the truth, which is now overwhelmingly supported by modern science, is that the single worst thing in the modern diet for your lipid profile is not fat, but sugar and refined carbohydrates. Here's the critical connection. When you eat an excess of sugar and refined carbs, things like white bread, pasta, potatoes, and especially sugary drinks, it causes a rapid spike in your blood sugar. In response, your body has to pump out a large amount of the hormone insulin to deal with it. When this happens over and over again, day after day, your cells become numb to insulin signal. This condition is called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the master switch for metabolic chaos. It tells your liver to start pumping out more triglycerides. It causes your protective HDL levels to drop, and it promotes the creation of those small, dense, highly dangerous LDL particles. This toxic trifecta, high triglycerides, low HDL, and small LDL, has a name, atherogenic dyslipidemia, and it is driven primarily by your intake of carbohydrates and sugar, not fat. The low-fat movement was a catastrophic mistake that made us fatter and sicker by pushing us toward the true dietary poison. Think about the classic healthy breakfast we were all encouraged to eat for years. A bowl of low-fat cereal with skim milk and a glass of orange juice. What is that meal, really? It's a massive load of sugar and refined carbs, with almost no fat or protein to slow down its absorption. It sends your blood sugar and insulin on a violent roller coaster. The supposedly unhealthy breakfast of 2 whole eggs cooked in butter with a side of avocado would actually be infinitely better for your metabolic health and your cholesterol profile. Your most powerful action step is to become a detective and start reading labels for added sugars. The American Heart Association now recommends no more than 6 teaspoons, or about 24 grams, for women, and 9 teaspoons, or 36 grams, for men per day. You will be shocked to find it hiding in everything from bread to pasta sauce to salad dressing. Your goal is to drastically reduce these and replace refined carbs with whole food sources of fiber and healthy fats. And the red flag here? If you have signs of insulin resistance, like significant weight gain around your middle, skin tags, or high blood pressure, it is imperative that you discuss reducing your carbohydrate load with your doctor. This is the absolute key to reversing the problem. And this brings us to the number one cholesterol lie, the one that impacts millions of seniors every single day. The automatic conclusion that so many doctors jump to. And here we are, the number one cholesterol lie, the one that underpins a multi-billion-dollar industry. If you're a senior and your cholesterol is high, a statin is the obvious, necessary, and only real solution. Statins are incredibly effective at their one specific job, lowering your LDL-C number by blocking its production in the liver. Since high LDL-C was seen as the primary problem for so long, statins logically became the go-to, gold standard solution. But the truth is, for seniors, especially when we're talking about primary prevention, meaning you have not already had a heart attack or stroke, the story is much, much murkier. The evidence is simply not as clear-cut as we've been led to believe. First, the evidence for primary prevention in adults over 75 is weak. The U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, the official body that makes these recommendations, states that for adults over 75 without a history of heart disease, the evidence is insufficient to assess the balance of benefits and harms. That's a stunning admission. Some studies have shown no benefit at all, and a few have even shown a disturbing trend toward higher mortality in this group when put on a statin. The big definitive trials that could finally answer this question are still ongoing. Second, the potential side effects are not trivial, especially for an older adult. Persistent muscle pain and weakness, which can dramatically increase the risk of a life-altering fall. Fatigue, potential memory loss or confusion, and an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes are all well-documented risks. And third, as we discussed earlier, statins are known to deplete the body of CoQ10 and vitamin K2, nutrients that are vital for your energy levels and for keeping your arteries clear of calcium. The entire practice of medicine is supposed to be based on a risk versus benefit calculation. For a 50-year-old with very high cholesterol, the potential long-term benefit of a statin might clearly outweigh the risks. But for an 80-year-old taking that same statin for primary prevention, the equation can flip entirely. The benefits are unproven, but the risks, muscle weakness leading to a fall, nutrient depletion, a reduced quality of daily life, are very real and immediate. The automatic prescribing of statins to older adults without a frank, honest discussion of this specific age-related evidence is a failure to practice truly personalized medicine. My own grandfather, a vibrant man in his late 70s, was put on a statin because his LDL was a little high. Within months, his energy vanished. He stopped wanting to go for his daily walks because his legs ached constantly. He felt foggy and just off. His quality of life plummeted. Was lowering a number on a lab report worth sacrificing the joy in his daily life? Your action step is to become an active, educated partner in this decision. Go to your doctor armed with questions. Ask them, since I'm over 75 and haven't had a heart attack, what does the evidence actually say about the benefit of this statin for someone my age? What are the potential side effects on my muscle strength and memory? Could we first try an aggressive 6-month lifestyle intervention focusing on diet, exercise, and stress management to see what we can achieve on our own? And the most important red flag of all, if you are currently on a statin and you are experiencing persistent muscle pain, weakness, fatigue, or memory confusion, do not just stop taking it. Go to your doctor immediately, report these side effects, and have a serious discussion about your options. It could be a different dose, a different statin, or a different approach altogether is needed. Busting these 10 lies isn't about creating fear. So what's the real story of cholesterol? It's not a simple tale of a single villain. The old story was about plumbing, the idea that fat comes in and clogs your pipes. The new, more accurate story is about biology. It's a story of how a modern diet, high in sugar and processed foods, drives a condition called insulin resistance and creates a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation throughout the body. This, in turn, creates a toxic environment that leads to high triglycerides, low protective HDL, and a swarm of small, dangerous LDL particles. In this new story, cholesterol isn't the arsonist. The most important message I want you to leave with today is this: you are not a passive victim of your cholesterol number. You are the CEO of your own health. By understanding that metabolic health, managing your blood sugar, reducing inflammation, and managing stress is the true key to a healthy heart, you gain an incredible amount of power. You have the power to change the conversation with your doctor and the power to make daily choices that have a profound impact on your vitality and your independence. Now, I want to hear from you. We've covered a lot of ground. Which of these 10 beliefs was the biggest aha moment for you? Was it the truth about the 7-country study? The power of the triglyceride to HDL ratio? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories and questions help our whole community learn and grow together. If you found this deep dive valuable, and you want more expert-level content to help you navigate your health with confidence, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a video. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Remember, knowledge is power, and you are more powerful than you've been led to believe. Here's to your health, and I'll see you in the next video.